In North York, right here in Toronto, Canada, just days ago, a memorial service was held for the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the former supreme leader of the Islamic Republic in Iran. What looks like a quiet community gathering on the surface is actually something far more troubling. An open display of support for a regime and its military apparatus that Canada has officially designated as terrorists. Scarlet Grace with Rebel News. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, was listed as a terrorist entity by the Government of Canada on June 19, 2024. Yet, here in our own backyard, its founding ideology and leadership are being glorified. This should raise some serious concerns about security, foreign influence, and whether Canada is turning a blind eye to threats operating on our soil. The event took place at the Medina Tul Ilm Mosque, also known as the Al Iman Society of Canada in North York. Videos from the gathering show a formal morning ceremony with large portraits of supreme leaders of the Islamic Republic, including Ruhollah Khomeini, Ali Khamenei, and his son Mojtaba Khamenei, prominently displayed alongside the flag of the Islamic Republic. Roses were displayed under the image of the dead tyrant. Speakers, including men dressed in full mullah attire, addressed a room full of attendees seated on the floor, some adorned in keffiyehs. The atmosphere was seemingly one of solemn mourning as they bowed their heads, mixed with ideological fervor. Hashtags like #WeMustRise were posted along with clips from the event and references to the martyred leader. Chants of Allahu Akbar are heard in videos posted to social media, and decorations included symbolic elements evoking what they call resistance and martyrdom, and attendees banged on their chests in a mourning act known as matam. Speakers thanked the presence of Pakistani, Afghan, Lebanese, and all brothers and sisters. Well-known agitator and anti-Israel provocateur Firas al-Najim was, of course, in attendance. He is now infamous for having run his car at Iranian protesters at a protest in front of a mosque in Thornhill in 2022. And he continues to harass residents of Bathurst and Shepherd to this day, as well as targets Iranian businesses in his videos. He's also known for taking a picture with Liberal MP Salma Zahid whilst wearing a t-shirt showing the images of all three deceased supreme leaders of the Islamic Republic. It's the same shirt that he's also wearing at this vigil. He's also posed in a photo with Jagmeet Singh. With the mic in hand at this vigil, he chants Marg Bar America, meaning death to America in Persian.
Marg Bar America! Marg Bar America! Marg Bar Israel! Marg Bar Israel!
Marg Bar Israel, death to Israel, as the crowd responds with the same. And until divine victory, until divine revenge, and death to opponents of the supreme leader. In February, an estimated 500,000 people marched in Toronto in opposition to the regime and its supreme leader, and in support of a free Iran led by His Imperial Majesty Reza Pahlavi. Chanting death to the opponents of the supreme leader is chanting for the deaths of all those people and anyone who's against the murderous regime occupying Iran. He's doing this right in North York. This was a farewell ceremony for a man who led Iran into the ground for decades and oversaw the expansion of its terrorist proxy network. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei wielded ultimate power over the regime's military, judiciary, and foreign policy. Under his watch, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps became the regime's primary tool of internal repression and external aggression. Again, listed terrorist organization. The IRGC was created in 1979 in the aftermath of the Islamic Revolution. The new Islamic Republic established it as a parallel military force loyal not to the nation, but to the revolutionary ideology and the supreme leader himself. It exists to protect the regime, suppress dissent inside Iran, and export the revolution abroad through terrorism and proxy wars. Its elite Quds Force specializes in covert operations, training, arming, and directing groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and other terrorist organizations across the Middle East. These proxies have carried out attacks, killing countless innocent civilians, including Canadians and our allies. In 2020, the IRGC, it shot down Ukrainian Airlines passenger flight PS752, which killed 55 Canadians and 30 permanent residents. 4 long years later, on June 19th, 2024, the government of Canada finally officially listed the entire Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist entity under the Criminal Code. This followed years of pressure and protests and came after the Quds Force had already been listed earlier. And the reasons were clear: the IRGC's direct involvement in terrorist acts, its known associations with other listed terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, its role in gross human rights abuses, and this came after October 7th, when tensions in the Middle East became more known amongst the Canadian public as the Islamic Republic trains and arms the very group that carried out the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Senior regime officials, including those tied to the regime's security apparatus, have been deemed inadmissible to Canada under immigration law for terrorism and gross human rights violations. This week, the UK too finally designated the IRGC as a terrorist group. Yet, despite this clear designation, events glorifying the regime's top leadership, the very figurehead who commanded the IRGC, are still taking place openly in Canadian cities like Toronto. The Islamic Republic and its IRGC have a documented history of transnational repression targeting Iranian dissidents, activists, and critics right here in Canada and other Western countries. There have been foiled assassination plots against prominent Canadian figures critical of the regime, such as former Justice Minister Irwin Cotler. Suspected killings and disappearances of dissidents have occurred on Canadian soil. The regime uses its intelligence apparatus, often linked to the IRGC, for surveillance, intimidation, and worse against those who speak out. Events like the one in North York normalize and potentially propagate the regime's ideology. When speakers mourn Khamenei as a martyred leader and echo calls to rise, they are glorifying a system responsible for brutal crackdowns on its own people, including the 2022-2023 Masa Amini uprising, arming and directing terrorist proxies that threaten global security, and cyber attacks, hostage-taking, and efforts to undermine democracies. And let's not forget the latest uprising in Iran that began at the end of last year, when the regime killed over 40,000 protesters in 48 hours. The casualty numbers are said to be at least double that in total since the uprising began, from sources inside Iran. In a country that has explicitly labeled the IRGC as a terrorist organization, allowing public gatherings that celebrate the regime's supreme commander sends a dangerous message, to say the least. It can serve as clear propaganda, a networking opportunity for sympathizers, supporters, and a form of soft power projection by a hostile foreign regime. It's not about free speech or freedom of religion, religious expression, religious mourning. It's about whether Canada will permit the open veneration of an entity and ideology tied to terrorism on our streets. The Criminal Code of Canada makes it illegal to knowingly participate in or facilitate the activities of listed entities, provide them property or services, or support their operations. While a private memorial might skirt direct legal lines in some interpretations, glorifying the leadership of a terrorist organization, especially one actively engaged in plots against Canadians, crosses into dangerous territory. It risks normalizing support for terrorism, something we're getting all too familiar with the protests for Palestine over the last few years. It also potentially aids recruitment or radicalization and undermining Canada's efforts to counter foreign interference. The regime doesn't just operate from Tehran. It seeks influence through diaspora communities and events like these. The Islamic Republic didn't just create the IRGC, it built it as a sword and shield. Glorifying leaders in Canada in places like North York is not harmless. It's a reminder that the threats we designate on paper can still find space to breathe in our communities. Canadian authorities should investigate these events thoroughly for any violations of our anti-terrorism or foreign interference laws. We need stronger measures or stronger action to prevent the public glorification of designated terrorist organizations and their leadership. support the Iranian Canadian communities that oppose the regime, not those who mourn its tyrants. Canada chose to list the IRGC as terrorists for a reason, to keep us safe. So let's enforce that choice consistently. What do you think? Should events glorifying Iran's terrorist apparatus be allowed on Canadian soil? Check out our new campaign, spurred by the Regina Mosque, that began blasting calls to prayer at stopislamicdomination.com. Check out the petition and share it if you want to stop Islamic domination in Canada. That's stopislamicdomination.com.